SIG P320 really sucks. So invariably you're gonna sell it and you can buy this instead. Something to that effect. We're gonna run with it. This gun is also striker fired, but unlike the P320, this probably won't shoot you. And if you just sold your P320, maybe you should get one of these. But I feel like that's like a decent intro. Maybe I'll throw like 10 rounds in, do some transitions, throw 6 rounds in. For a striker fired gun, they definitely knocked it out of the park. This gun is louder than I remember it being, so I'm here for it. Okay, we'll throw 8 rounds in here. You ready? Cool. Best part about this thing, just for a striker fired gun, God, it's such a nice trigger. Like, yeah, it's clean. I'll give it that. The tactical serrations on this gun, so you know you can be like John Wick and do a press check. You can be like a boomer and do a press check. You just do however you like it, honestly. It is starting to grow on me. I'm starting to get more comfortable with this thing. I like it. How was that? All right, guys, so you just sold your P320. You're looking for another serious but still striker fired handgun. While I really do like the SIG P226, and it's definitely not striker fired, it's a pretty cool gun. I actually used it a little bit of this comparison. This is a pretty neat firearm by Fusion Firearms / Ermox, which is a Turkish company that is producing these handguns. Fusion Firearms is taking these handguns from them and essentially making them better, kind of upgrading them, still keeping the price point super low. You can get this is their like pro model, the like better version, which both are pretty much the same as far as like internals and such. This one just looks cooler, I guess you could say. But this gun is definitely a serious contender, I would say. And I also would say, don't necessarily let the Turkish build of this gun fool you. This thing is pretty solid. Obviously, I've had no failures to fire, no issues with it. But what makes this thing stand out? So this is essentially built on a Glock style of setup. This is a Glock 19 clone. I think many people would call it that. But really, it's pretty far from a Glock clone because this is a full metal frame. So everything here is metal. You got your metal slide, metal frame, and it has full rails as far as your slide goes. So there's very little wiggle between your two mating surfaces. And yeah, it's overall a fairly different experience. Now, other things that make this different from a stock Glock while still being at that stock Glock price, obviously mentioned the full metal frame. The other thing that's pretty nice is the trigger. So obviously clear, this trigger is from the outer box, once again, a metal trigger, and is very good. The reset is super, super nice. And the trigger is actually just like you just want to keep shooting this gun. It's very clean. There's no creep. There's really no creak. You do hit a definitive wall, and after that wall, it just breaks. There's no movement in it. And then, of course, you do have a little bit of a quieter reset than on a stock Glock. But once again, you get that really great kind of almost two-stage, if you will, with that take up and then break. Now, this thing's probably around, I would say, about like a 3.5, 4-pound trigger. Can't quite remember. But yeah, just really, really excellent experience. Now, of course, the slide is also cut in a million different ways, so you can grab it, do your press checks, all that kind of stuff. It also looks pretty aesthetically pleasing. And the other thing that's pretty cool is out of box. So this is running just stock iron sights, but this comes with 3 different plates or mounting plates that you can get. So of course it comes out of box with the ability to do or to throw an RMR on here. I believe a Delta Point Pro and one other, I can't remember, but you get 3 plating systems for red dots out of the box with this thing. So if you do, like many of us, want to throw a red dot immediately on this gun, you have plenty of access to different types of red dots for your handgun. Other things to note, it does have a pretty nice, pretty enlarged magazine release. Now this is not Gen 4 style Glock 19, this is going to be Gen 3, so you do only have your slide release, slide stop on your right side. So not the most ambi handgun in the world, but overall, I don't know. There's not too many lefties out in this world, and so if you are a lefty, maybe this gun isn't for you, but overall for a right-handed shooter, pretty darn good. Now, one of the biggest cons I do have for this gun, and I think it kind of frustrates me, I would like to see them at least maybe have an option here, is that you have this thumb ramp over here, and this thumb ramp, it's built integrally into the frame of the pistol, so it's a metal thumb ramp. And unfortunately, it's kind of the biggest flaw of this gun, because this thumb ramp isn't really built out enough for you to get enough purchase to really like drive the gun down. So the idea with thumb ramps is that you're supposed to help drive the gun down. So this thumb ramp really is kind of more like a perch. So every time I was using it personally, it was kicking me off. So there wasn't really like enough purchase here to like stop the recoil. So every time the gun would recoil, the recoil would just make me slip right off of it. And so partly that's because this ramp isn't really that big and it's not really that like grippy. It's pretty slick overall. And of course the metal doesn't help with that. So that's the biggest thing I dislike about it, and I really dislike it because, unfortunately, having this thumb ramp here, it's kind of like a little tumor, if you will, on the frame of the gun. So what that means is, even though this is Glock 19 sized, and everything else, if it wasn't for this ramp, would allow you to be able to throw this thing in normal Glock 19 holsters, that's really not a possibility with this gun. So you do actually have to find a gun, or a holster, sorry, that is actually specifically for the XF Pro. So that is probably the biggest drawback to this, but I will say to those saying like, oh, it's a deal breaker, it may be for some people, especially if you have a lot of, you know, Glock holsters or 1917 holsters. This may be a turnoff, but if you are like, if this is your first kind of like foray into something like this, you are going to save enough money on the gun that you can get a dedicated holster for this gun specifically. And then you still have the compatibility with Glock 19 mags. So the mags are still super cheap. You know, you're going to be able to throw whatever Glock 19, Glock 17 magazines in this thing, and it will work just fine. So the magazines are still compatible, so that's good. But yeah, so that's about the only thing that I really have an issue with this gun overall. Everything else is pretty darn squared away. Hopefully you guys can see it is really controllable because it is a metal frame. Now, as I mentioned in shooting, I'm definitely used to like my metal frame full-size guns, things like P226s, my SIG Scorpion, other things like the Springfield Prodigy. Definitely used to like heavier handguns. So this being a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more snappy, but in comparison to like a full polymer, you know, framed Glock 19, this is gonna be way more controllable, unless of course, like my 19X, it has a compensator or, you know, like compensated ports in the barrel. So it's definitely a little bit more controllable if you have ports in the barrel, but overall this thing is pretty darn good. And like I said, for the price of this thing coming in sub 600 and the non-pro model coming in like, I want to say less than 500, you're gonna be pretty hard pressed to beat something like this. Yeah, genuinely pretty awesome to see. And so other things I do like I said, it is a full metal frame built on that kind of Glock style, which is just rare to see for striker fired handguns. So if that is your jam, you might seriously want to take a look at this. And because it is built on that Glock architecture, it's definitely not going to have the same issues as the SIG P320 line, and it definitely won't randomly shoot you. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video on the XF by Fusion Firearms, the XF Pro. And as always, guys, God bless, and I'm out.